Hello everyone, it is your boy Winster and I am back at it again with another video. Today we are going to be going over the best decks in today's current meta and also maybe some decks that you want to stay away from. With that being said, guys, let's jump right into today's video. Thinking about it, this is the first video of 2023. How and where did 2022 go to? In all honesty, I had a lot of goals set for myself, and towards the end of 2022 I had a big eye-opener of how much one could grow on YouTube. So I'm pretty excited for 2023. I have a lot of determination and I can't wait to bring a lot of the content that I have in mind. I want to know some of you guys' personal goals for 2023. Let me know in the comment section below and let me know if you hit 2022 goals. So let's start off the year right. Let's get right into the video. Quick disclaimer, guys, the decks that we're going to go over today are only meta relevant. I know there's a lot of archetypes and some archetypes that I don't even know of, so we're only going to really be discussing some of the meta relevant ones that are making somewhat of an impact. Also, these opinions are my own. Do not let them deter how you feel about certain decks or how you guys see the meta. These are just my thoughts and opinions, and you guys are more than welcome to express how you guys feel about my tier list. And be sure to let me know your guys' current meta tier list in the comment section below. Let's get right to it. So starting us off in S tier, the best deck in today's format, Tearlament Ishizu. By far the strongest deck that I have seen in quite some time, given I've only been playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! For about 2 to 1.5 years now. With the release of Magnificent Mavens, Tearlament shot up the ranks to tier 0. Being a powerhouse in the grind game, being able to keep up even when interrupted was unmatched. With the drop of Magnificent Mavens and the release of the Ishizu cards, Tearlament Ishizu skyrocketed to tier 0. Its grind game is unmatched, unrivaled in today's current format. Also, the Ishizu cards provide great synergy with the Tearlament cards being milling and then fusioning off of those mills. The Ishizu cards also provide gate coverage when it comes in a defensive manner as well, shuffling back in important cards in your opponent's graveyard back into the deck or removing specific targeted cards so those BCOs don't resolve and special summon themselves. An added bonus to the Tearlament strategy is having such a strong field spell, being a searcher and removal for the archetype. Considering how strong Tearlament Ishizu is, having great synergy with the Ishizu cards, having consistency, being able to play multiple copies of Tearlament monsters in the main, and also such a strong field spell. It goes without saying Tearlament Ishizu, one of the best decks, but also has the ability to be mixed with other strong archetypes like Sprite cards, being more specific with Sprite Elf, and also a newly released archetype, the BCO cards, adding a little bit more strength to the already powerful deck. Now, in my personal opinion, I think Tearlament Ishizu by far is the best deck in today's format. Goes without saying. However, that doesn't mean there aren't ways to actually fight the deck. One of the biggest weaknesses is also its strength, being the graveyard. If you find some sort of way to turn off the graveyard or prevent them from milling, the deck is kind of dead in the water. That's where D-Shifter comes into play, D-Shifter being the biggest hurdle that Tearlament Ishizu has to deal with. Also, a great way to stop them is D-Barrier. Turning off fusions and preventing them from fusion summoning is also a great way to stop them from setting up massive advantage. One of the newer ways to combat the Tearlament Ishizu overlords is the new BCO cards that were released, having a DD Crow-like effect and also being a quick effect when your opponent controls a monster. Target one light or dark monster in either graveyard, banish it and special summon, and if that card were to have an effect, you would activate it. Being that the key components in the Tearlament strategy are dark monsters and need to be in the graveyard in order to resolve, this will help you fight those monsters. One last thing I wanted to point out when it comes to Tearlament Ishizu, if you could even call this a weakness, usually they do not run the hand traps, and if they do, they probably just run it in the side in the form of Gamma. And again, considering how fast the game is these days, can you even call that a weakness? Moving down our tier list, we are going to tier 1 or tier, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be talking about Sprite. Sprite is a very consistent archetype, having access to cards like Pot of Prosperity, considering that you can potentially run multiple copies of cards in the extract and getting to those key cards. And with getting to those key cards, you have access to one card starter, being Sprite Starter. special summon any sprite monster and you take damage equal to its attack, and then usually you would go to Sprite Blue, go to Sprite Jet, and then you start setting up your board there, and that's not even committing to the normal summon. Considering how small the monster pool is for Sprite, it could also be used as an engine of sort, working wonderfully with any kind of strategy that is composed of level 2, rank 2, or link 2 monsters. It pairs wonderful with Live Twin, Runic, Tri-Brigade, Frogs, Nimble, and of course Tearlament. Another strong component that Sprite do bring to the table is its abundance in hand traps. Considering there's not a lot of Sprite cards, so having the ability to run multiple hand traps is nice. Cards like Ash Blossom, Gamma, the Bestials, Infinite Impermanence, Effect Veiler, the list goes on, and having access to disruptions on your opponent's turn and not needing too many engine cards is really nice. Now there's a reason that Sprite is an A tier and not an S tier with Tearlament Ishizu. Its end boards are not as strong as they used to be with the banning of Rodent Totem, and being able to have access to one card totally awesome does hurt the deck in the long run. One thing that the deck has always struggled, even since it was first released in the TCG, which is low attack, players would add extra cards like Sprite Pixies in order to increase the attack of their monsters, Gamma Burst for more attack increase, and adding the Zeus package in the extra deck to be able to get over troublesome huge boss monsters that the opponent put out. Super Poly being another troublesome card that the archetype has issues in dealing with, given a lot of today's meta relevant decks have a hard time with Super Poly, but Sprite Elf, Sprite Carrot, and Sprite Red are all Super Poly targets. Having to commit to a normal summon is another downfall for the deck. Usually you wouldn't really need it, but now that you have to fully commit to a specific combo route, if you were to get interrupted at any point in that combo, it spells out doom for the deck. Also in A tier or tier 1, whatever you want to call it, is Flundereeze. The Flundereeze strategy is a very simple yet very effective versus the meta relevant decks that we're talking about today. Summoning Impin and having a skill drain on the field, summoning Wind Barrier Statue and preventing your opponent from special summoning that isn't wind, and also having access to cards in the main such as D-Shifter to banish anything our opponent would try to mill or send to the graveyard. Also a very consistent deck, having access to cards like Pot of Duality and also Pot of Prosperity to search your deck for those key impactful cards that you need in whatever situation. The Flundereeze strategy is very strong, but it does have its weaknesses. In my personal opinion, it has very limited removal options in terms of getting rid of your opponent's boss monsters. Also, its extra deck is more of a resource for Duality, for Extravagance, and Pot of Prosperity, so having no access to extra deck monsters that could really change the tide of the game if it's not going in your favor can also be kind of a weak point. It's not really that much of a weak point, but it's definitely something to look at. The last deck in A tier, and the last deck that we're going to be talking about today, is Branded Despia, one of my personal favorites. Branded Despia being a very powerful strategy and having a lot of removal options such as Mirror Jade, Guardian Chimera, Branded Banishment, Branded in Red. The list goes on a lot of removal options, and I think that's what really makes this deck a powerful one. On top of all the removal options, it has great attack stats. Guardian Chimera, probably one of the more popular ones and one of the highest attack stat at 33. Mirror Jade being a 3k beater, and also Quiritus being able to reduce anything that isn't a level 8 fusion monster down to 0 is also an added bonus. Now there is a cost to get in, guys. Let me tell you, it is a pricey one. Masquerade, or Tax Dragon, how you guys know him, is a 2500 attack dragon monster that makes sure that you pay 600 as cost for each card that you activate, be it trap, monster effect, or spell. Advantage is the name of the game in Yu-Gi-Oh! Having access to the Patchwork package being one of the stronger packages that is run in Branded Despia, Edgem Chain being a strong monster, searching out Patchwork when sent to the grave from hand or field. Also Patchwork searching out a copy of Polymerization and Edgem Chain, so Patchwork literally being a +1 as soon as you activate it is a phenomenal card. And on top of that is fantastic Ash Bait, because what does your opponent want to resolve? The Patchwork or the Branded Fusion. Branded Despia is a very powerful strategy, but it does have its weaknesses. And one of its biggest weakness, considering today's format is a little silly one at that, Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom single-handedly stopping the Branded Despia strategy, considering that it has the ability to stop Branded Fusion even when cards such as Branded Loss is active, is very detrimental to the deck, and you need to make sure that you could resolve Branded Fusion at any point in time when you can. Branded Despia being a relatively small archetype in terms of monsters or impactful spells like Branded Fusion is also kind of a downfall, because you would have to run non-engine cards such as Patchwork or the Bestial cards in the deck, so you do have a higher chance, in my personal opinion, to brick. So that's why it's really important for you to manage ratios in the deck accordingly. That brings us to the end of the list. However, I had some honorable mentions I wanted to go over with you quickly. Dragon Link also being a very powerful strategy, with new support cards like the Bestial strategy being added to its arsenal. Cards like Safer Dragon, Chaos Space, very powerful cards in that strategy. Also, the Rocket cards are a great addition to that strategy. Its biggest downfall, a light and dark strategy, so the Bestial cards will literally tear that deck up limb from limb. Another honorable mention is the Sorcerer strategy, seeing somewhat of a resurgence, placing pretty consistent at some recent events, so definitely another deck to look at if you are interested. But considering how strong Tearlament and all these other decks, it's just an honorable mention. I would need to see a little bit more action and a little bit more consistency from that deck. So that brings us to the end of today's video. I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on the subject. What are some of the best decks in today's format? I want to see your top 5 lists in the comment section below, so please type that up so I could read it. I had a lot of fun putting this video together. This is something different and one of my first videos on this type of subject, so I'm really excited to bring even more content like this. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section. But that is going to be it for today. Please be sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bells. Also, help me out with that algorithm. Please be sure to leave a like. But until next time, guys, I'll check you guys out later. My name is Winster. Peace out.